is XL Primetime. Brought to you by Florida Home AC. Now that's cool on 1010XL.
We keep it rolling on a Thursday edition of XL Primetime, and if you are watching on our 1010XL live cam on Twitter or YouTube, you may see some cameras protruding in front of the webcams. That is because we have a very special guest in the house. We had to break out the big guns. For the guy with the big guns, one Austen Lane, former Jaguar turned UFC star, who will make his UFC debut next Saturday night in the city of Jacksonville.
Yeah.
I said it to you in the break, Austin. First of all, welcome to 1010XL. Welcome to XL
First of all,
Primetime.
thank you for having me. You said big guns. I'm sitting next to Leon Cersei, so I think he has me beating the big guns department. But it's gonna be
try.
anyways.
You guys live together.
We lived. Yeah, we're at the Y. I saw him over there curling the 50s. Over there.
Ish. It was like 50-ish. Yeah.
50-ish.
Different positions, different courses for different horses. We're not going to ask you about the U.S. Open. Don't worry.
Appreciate you.
But when I say that you are making your UFC debut in Jacksonville, you and I were talking about it during the break. You weren't supposed to make your debut in Jacksonville.
No.
The fact that it has panned out that way.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
It means a lot. I was supposed to fight in Perth, Australia, of all places. And then literally 2 weeks before the fight, I tore my bicep. I was sparring, and I threw a punch I threw a million times before. And for whatever reason, on that day, on that Saturday, the bicep tore. And had to go to the ER. It was a big ordeal. And it just so happened to be on the day that the Jaguars played the Chargers in the playoff game.
God.
So ended up missing that game because I had to be in the ER for about 5 hours. And it was just a nightmare. So not my best day. But, so right after that surgery, then, I got back to training. And I tried to – they set a 5 to 6 month timetable of when I would be back. I was back in 3 months. So started training, getting back into shape and everything. And then it just so happened that, hey, the UFC's coming to Jacksonville and it hits the timetable when I could actually go back to fight at full strength. So it really worked out well for everybody.
Love that.
Now, it's interesting this is your debut because I asked you off the air. I said, I knew you to be a fighter, a mixed martial artist fighter, but this is your UFC debut. So, what was your journey like to get to this point right now, like where you're going to be in Jacksonville?
Yeah. It's been a long journey. It started when I retired from the NFL back in 2014. I played in Chicago, moved back to Jacksonville, and then my MMA career started there. It started on the regional scene, and when I say the regional scene, I'm talking about fighting in honky-tonks and small bars. One of my favorite stories to tell is my second fight I ever had. I fought a guy from Titusville. And I ended up knocking him out in the first round. And as I climbed up this cage, it's in the honky-tonk, his girlfriend hopped the barricade and tried to push me off the cage. And I have a photo of that and everything. So, it was very close quarters, back on the regional scene. But I started to grow as an amateur. I turned pro. And then I started to fight on bigger and bigger promotions until the point where I had my first opportunity back in 2018 on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series where I fought Greg Hardy. Another NFL player. That didn't go my way, obviously. He got all the shine. He got the UFC contract. I had to go rebuild, and I did. And then I got my second opportunity last September. I won the contract, and now I'm fighting in Jacksonville.
All right, so you said you were going to fight in Perth, Australia.
Yeah.
How do you get fights? Like is it randomly, or is it like a set schedule where in set different places where guys fight?
Yeah, I think it all varies, right? Like if you're one of the big stars in UFC, like say for instance Conor McGregor, right? Like when they're trying to build him, well, you want him to fight in Ireland, right? You want him to fight in Boston because there's a giant Irish presence there. I think for my UFC debut in Perth, they were thinking, okay, this guy played in the NFL, he has a little bit of a following, and it was going to be on a pay-per-view card. So like that's kind of unheard of for a first fight to be on your pay-per-view card. So, I think they were trying to build me there, but unfortunately the injury happened. So what's the second best thing? Well, it's not a pay-per-view card, but it's a UFC Fight Night here in the city where I played football in.
You will be fighting Justin Tafa again of New Zealand. That's the Kiwis, right? I was just Googling that, making sure Kiwi is New Zealand, not Australia.
Correct, yeah, because you can't mix them together. I guess it's like a big thing. They get
I don't want to offend.
Yeah, they do not like that.
I don't want to offend the Kiwis and the Aussies out there listening in the 1010XL universe. Sure. Austin is fighting in the second to last prelim, which my boyfriend is a massive UFC fan, so he's educated me on this. So for those of you that may not be as familiar, there are the prelims, which this Jacksonville UFC Fight Night is actually a day fight. So
Yeah.
that's what's super fascinating, Austin, is the main card doesn't start until 3 o'clock. So you're expected to go on around, 2 o'clock, 2:30-ish?
I would probably say 2:30, yeah. And it's crazy how that goes into play, too, in terms of training, right? Because we're all creatures of habit when we talk about fighters. So, like, these last 2 weeks, my training's been done around 2:30 to 3 o'clock now, just to kind of acclimate to what time I'll be walking out. Because usually when you train at night.
Right.
That's when guys are off at
because
work
most
and everything.
UFC events are at night.
Exactly. But I think it's because the ABC negotiation, whatever the case may be, it'll be an ABC, so they want to do it earlier. But the wild thing, too, is when I was supposed to fight in Perth, I was going to fight at 6 o'clock a.m. their time.
Their time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just for the TV purposes.
Correct.
That's
yeah,
fascinating.
which would put it like 6 o'clock p.m. here.
Okay.
But then I'm like, well, then do I train 6 p.m. here or
also,
do I train
like,
6
the
a.m.
jet lag,
here? Oh,
like,
yeah,
how
who you
soon are they
telling?
flying you over there to, get you ready for that?
And by the way, the UFC is great, but they have me flying coach, too. So that been a very, very long plane ride, flying coach. I think it was like 25 hours to get to Perth. So, yeah, thankfully that didn't go down.
Now, also, you play in the NFL, too, and now you're a UFC fighter. What is your mindset the night before? Because I know when I had a game or a big game, the night before, I usually had well, first of all, I went through my visualizations. I always saw myself beating my opponent, blocking my opponent, and all that kind of stuff. And then I got into a situation where I couldn't sleep because I was so excited about the opportunity that I had before me. I mean, do you still have those same vibes with the UFC when you fight it?
So it's wild, Leon, because when you talk about, obviously you played the game for many years. I think football is definitely a game of emotion. And the way that you played in the trenches, it's got to be violent. You have to get after your opponent and all that. Fighting is a little different where, and I kind of found this out later in my pro career, I used to come into the cage and like the night before and just get amped up, right? I'm getting ready to go to war here. I'm getting ready to try to knock this dude out. And, emotions would be high. But I found like once I cleared all those emotions out and it was more of just like, hey, I'm getting ready to go spar again. I'm getting ready to go do what I've done, the past 8 weeks of training camp. I found myself a lot more calm. And I think if you look at UFC fighters, the best ones are the ones that are most calm. Because if you go in there emotional, trying to knock somebody out, you make mistakes. Especially fighting heavyweight, one mistake can make the difference.
So, Austin, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's a more difficult lift? Playing an NFL game where every play is literally a car wreck, or fighting?
Yeah.
And why? Let's scale 1 to 10 for each, and why?
Yeah, so I think in terms of just the season of the NFL, it's a lot harder than MMA is concerned, especially when we talk about training camp. Like you're definitely old school, Leon, when it comes to the real two-a-days. I got to see 2 years of quote-unquote real two-a-days, 2 practices a day, full pads, all that stuff. And I remember just my body just feeling banged up. I was popping ibuprofen like they're Tic Tacs. You know what I'm saying? Like you're sore, you're banged up. In fighting, it's different. People think like, oh, hey, we're knocking heads every single day in MMA, but that's not the case. One day I'm training jiu-jitsu, which is just on the ground. The next day, maybe I'm training Muay Thai, where I'm just in the clinch the whole time. We're not always punching each other in the face. So I think just from a standpoint of the workload, from the preparation, I think MMA is a lot easier. And then obviously when you get in the cage, all it takes is one shot to put your lights out. And yeah, obviously there's some damage there. But in an NFL game, if you're playing in the trenches, you're talking 60, 70 plays of just nonstop car accidents. The NFL is way harder on your body.
As a fighter, you can find seconds, precious seconds, in the ring where you can pull back a little, right? Or
Correct.
at least protect yourself.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like if I'm tired, I can go for a takedown and just lay on the guy for a couple minutes and just try to catch my breath. But thankfully, usually I'm the guy that's always in better shape than my opponent.
Right.
So you're going up against Tafa, who is, again, these are the notes that I've been provided.
Oh, let's hear it.
KO specialist.
Correct.
All 6 wins by knockout. You alluded to when you faced Greg Hardy back in 2018, which was, again, a KO decision. Tafa's only gone the distance twice as a pro. Both were losses for him. So for you, strategy when you get prepared for next Saturday.
Yeah, so in terms of strategy, I won't reveal like the whole game plan.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not going to do that.
But how do you face somebody like that who's going to come in guns a-blazing?
Yeah, and this is kind of where me playing in the NFL helped a lot too in terms of preparation and watching film. Like as I've watched film of my opponent here, Justin Tafa, he's really 2 different fighters. When he first started out, he was a lot like me, where he came out aggressive right away and went for that knockout because the guy's got power. And if you got power, use it. But I saw like when he would do that, he would make mistakes. And then he got clipped, I think, twice. He got knocked out. So when we talk about that, that was like the first version of Justin Tafa. And now the guy that I'm going to see next Saturday is a lot more calm, cool, and collected. He's a lot more patient. And when you deal with a guy that's patient, that's calm and collected, well, then I can't make mistakes, right? Then I can't rush things. I have to set stuff up. So, in terms of the game plan, I plan on staying on the feet. I love to strike. I love to throw kicks and punches. But to me, it comes down to just being patient and just being myself. If I can do those two things, I think we'll be successful.
I think we've – go ahead, Leon.
3 words. Rope-a-dope.
Rope-a-dope. Okay. It's different with those like 12-ounce gloves. With the 12-ounce gloves.
He's known he's known with his knockout. Hey,
Okay.
make him go the distance.
Okay, I'll see what I can do, man.
I was just going to say, I think you've got Leon's attention. If you're cool, we may keep you for another segment.
No, let's go.
Let's do it. And let's talk some Jags, too, while we have Austen in the house. Again, Austen Lane making his UFC debut next Saturday. It is UFC Fight Night at VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena. The main card starts at 3. Austen is part of the prelims, so he's slated to go on around 2 o'clock against Justin Tafa. Of course, you can watch that on ESPN+. And then the main card is available on ABC, which is very exciting because it will be on the main channel. And it does look like your prelim, it would be an ESPN situation. So it's not just for those Plus subscribers.
For sure. It'll be like the real ESPN. So there's no need to pay $9.99 to watch me fight. You can watch for free.
Love it. Love it. Duval is proud. The folks on the text line want to know if you're going to give a Duval. Hold that answer. We're coming back with more Austen Lane right after this on XL Primetime.